Thanks so much for being here today, everybody. I'm Reverend Carrie Kopnick, and we are so glad that you have joined us today for Chi Talks. Chi Talks is a monthly event that explores the facets of spirituality through an interfaith lens with the Chi interfaith community. You can join us usually on the third Tuesday of the month at 4 o'clock Pacific. As you can see, we're recording our session today, so if you wish not to be on camera, please turn off your video and your image won't appear in the recording. And we will have time at the end for questions. If you don't want to ask a question on camera, go ahead and put it in the text and we'll share it for you. The Chaplaincy Institute provides education for people who are seeking to serve in hospitals, in hospices, disasters, prisons, corporations, the military, for activists, and in environmental contexts. She also trains spiritual leaders to serve as spiritual companions in our Spiritual Direction Certificate program. We tend the spiritual needs of our diverse communities in many, many ways. It is the oldest and most respected interfaith seminary in the United States. Our ordination or our faith group endorsement is recognized by the Association of Professional Chaplains, the Veterans Administration, and the military. For next month, we will be joined on September 16th by Reverend Leah Nagase for her talk, We're Effed, So Now What? So I hope you'll all join us for that. I'll share a follow-up email and a space to register for that talk because it sounds awfully good. I'm going to take just a moment to introduce our speaker. Thanks so much for being here with us today, Reverend Elaine. Reverend Elaine Power is a queer, non-binary therapist and ordained interfaith minister. In their private practice at the Trauma Healing Center, Elaine specializes in trauma and PTSD, offering compassionate, identity-affirming care. Elaine also facilitates divine feminine workshops through 170trees.org, a progressive spiritual community at the intersection of sacred practice and social justice. A new 6-week series launches this September. We'll have a link for that for you in our follow-up email. Elaine lives on California's Central Coast in a co-housing community with their partner and daughter, where life under the avocado trees offers a daily invitation into the practice of beloved community. Let's take a moment before we begin this sacred circle, this sacred conversation to arrive. Maybe our bodies were rushing to get here, so I invite you to place a hand on your chest or on your belly if it's available to you and take a couple of good, sweet breaths. You can whisper to yourself, here I am. Here I am. Here I am. And here I am. And now light a candle for us and saying to us, here we are. All right, Elaine, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, and hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. That is the part that I'm most nervous about, that working. It worked? Okay, cool, smooth sailing from here. Yeah, so I'm the Reverend Elaine Power, and today we're going to be exploring the divine feminine beyond traditional notions of masculine, feminine, the binary that we're so familiar with. But let me start by telling you a story. Once upon a time, several years ago, a younger version of myself, hot off of a divorce, single mom to this precious little nugget right there, ripe for my own little eat, pray, love, spiritual awakening, healing journey, except single mom on the beach style. And the universe brought me into this spiritual journey with a true instance of bibliomagic, where at my desk at work one morning, a book appeared. And This is not exaggeration. Like, none of my coworkers knew where it came from. Nobody, nobody claimed responsibility for putting it on my desk. So thank you. True Book Magic, When Things Fall Apart by Pema Chodron. My first introduction into Buddhist thought, and Pema is magnificent. She told me in so many words, like, girl, you gotta relax with what is. Sometimes things just suck. You're divorced right now, it sucks. But you have the strength and the intrinsic goodness to deal with it without squirming, without manipulating. She told me in so many words, don't get locked in. Life has changed. Life is always fluctuating. The minute you try to take a firm position on something and say, this is who I am and this is the way it is, the ground's going to move under your feet. That's the world. Don't get locked in. This was really, really good for me to hear, and I got a lot out of this. But eventually, there was a part of me that started longing for just a little bit more like juice. You know, where someone like, when does it get sexy? Well, then the universe sent me another book. I was in my local library, and I like to say that this book literally jumped off the shelf at me, except that is an exaggeration. It was more that just, I was locked in. I saw this book. I had just started practicing yoga, Awakening Shakti. I said, the goddesses of yoga? Yeah. And this introduced me to some of the Vedic principles about Shakti as the feminine energy being the active principle. Life, fully alive, dancing, vibrant, creating, dying, birthing. And the masculine as more the passive, the awareness. One of the most beautiful images from this tradition is that Shakti, the goddess, she dances the world into being, and Shiva, her lover and consort, he is her witness. He is the audience without which there can be no dance. This really lit me up, having lived in our patriarchal Western world, hearing about what the divine can be feminine, she can be alive and blissful and moving, and it's the masculine that's more passive. That's really cool. And this book introduced me to goddesses like Kali, naked, alive, free. She will cut off the head of your egoic illusions, but only because she loves you so much and wants you to just experience her blissful dance free from illusions. Lalita Tripura Sundari, the exotic beauty of the three worlds. She is the queen of the universe, but she rules not through authoritarian power, but from allurement. She is the force of desire in the universe, that which calls the bees to the flower and bonds all things together. We serve the goddess out of love. How about Durga, the warrior goddess? 8 arms bristling with weapons, defeating demons left and right, all in the name of justice and protecting the vulnerable. Yes, love this. It's like, so I want to learn more. And, read more books, Googled Divine Feminine, did little workshops, did, for example, Healing the Womb, a workshop I found, multidimensional sexual healing and awakening through ancient womb wisdom teachings. All right, love it. I have a womb. Let's see what we get out of this. And there was a lot of lovely stuff. Talking a lot about the marriage of the divine feminine and the sacred masculine, both as energies within us, as well as like attracting your very literal soulmate to you. And as I was a hot single lady looking for my soulmate at the time, I was like, yeah, please. And, to its credit, I have to admit that several weeks after this course wrapped up, I did meet my love. And he is every bit the sacred masculine, except, plot twist, he's a trans man and every bit the sacred masculine. And so then I started to learn maybe it's not about the bits that make you a man. And starting to question a little bit of like, well, do I still completely fit within this divine feminine and my sacred masculine. The thread started to unravel. And, I kept questioning and questioning, especially like as I turned my focus now toward myself and, well, what does being feminine mean to me? What is gender? Like, how do I explore myself in this new relationship, in my spirituality? And I started to feel a sense of distance because, some of these divine feminine, sacred masculine, if you guys can see the slide, I know it's kind of faint, but these are lovely qualities, divine feminine qualities, vulnerable, surrendered, trusting, creative, compassionate, magnetic. Love that. Great. All of that. Divine masculine, present, disciplined, focused, logical, confident, protective. Love that too. But what if I just want both? Why do they have to be two circles? And if, as you move through this sort of online, new agey, spirituality, divine feminine sphere, you see a lot of imagery like this. And so you might start to pick up the idea that to really live the divine feminine, you probably should dance ecstatically in the moonlight. There should be a lot of flowers. You probably ought to be pregnant with the world. And, really, really, probably you just ought to be a white lady in a white dress. And that's how you do the divine feminine. Well, and I will say, coming back to the way that divine feminine can very quickly start to veer in a sort of locked in direction. As I went back to the womb healing class to get the screenshot for this class, I noticed among some of their language that not only are we healing, sexual trauma, dissociation, shame. Oh, now we're talking about body dysmorphia. Okay, I don't want people to feel that. That's for sure. And now we're talking about, oh dear, going after our girls through twisted ideology. Ooh, that's starting to sound like some kind of dangerous language. And I noticed further down on the page, in terms, one of the testimonials was saying that she was questioning if she was trans, but this class helped her reclaim her womanhood, which I'm always happy for anyone's highest soul's journey, of course, but gives me pause. And as a non-binary person myself, you really start to wonder, do I belong in this space? Is the divine feminine just a thing for women with uteruses? And, is it actually just for cis straight women? Is it actually just for white, privileged, cis straight women? You could very easily get that impression just looking at what's out there, which it's so obvious it doesn't need to be stated. This leaves a lot of people out. What if you are a man? What if you're a gender non-conforming woman? What if you're an intersex woman born without a womb? Is this theology for you, or are you just out of luck? Now, I know that I set up this talk with this as the main question, and there is really a rather obvious answer. So I'll give it to you now, and I hope it's still satisfying. Obviously, no. Surprise. But I wanted to learn more, and I sensed that there was so much more, so much deeper, richer meaning behind just orgasmically moonlight on your boobs. So I went to seminary. I found a marvelous, very queer interfaith seminary. Shout out to Chi. I read marvelous books. I talked to wonderful people. And here I am today, going to give you the most distilled down essence of what I would say a divine feminine theology. is. I'm going to use the phrase mystical empiricism, which is something that I learned from my dear friend, the Reverend Brother Seth Samuels, recently ordained. And if you're not familiar with the word empiricism, it's a way of understanding from direct observation, experimentation, and interaction with the world. Buddhism, for example, is an empiricist tradition in that it says, go out and try it, see for yourself. So we are talking about a mystical empiricism here, where we look at the world and we look at the spiritual nature of our reality and we say, who knows? Let's go and find out. Or another way of saying it is that we understand the divine by witnessing her works. And that's what the divine feminine means as a theology. And not only are we witnessing her works, but we affirm the sacredness of all of her works, for her works are marvelous indeed. So if we're coming back around to the question of where does gender and sexuality and identity fit in with all of this, let's apply our new lens. Okay, nature is our textbook, our holy book, our guide. Let's go look. What does nature have to say about gender and sexuality? And I came across this marvelous book, Evolution's Rainbow, by Dr. Joan Roughgarden. She is herself a trans woman and a biologist. It's excellent if you want an informative read, looking at the vast spectrum of gender displays and sexuality in the animal kingdom. Or to save us some time, we can watch this little 2-minute trailer. This documentary is called Second Nature, produced with Dr. Joan Roughgarden, narrated by Elliot Page, and give you a look now.
Homosexual behavior in nature is one of the best kept secrets. It's absolutely everywhere. Dolphins have homosexual sex all the time. Penguins pair bond with members of the same sex too. Black swans, gray-lag goose, waterfowl are gay. Many waterfowl are very gay.
Not only do many species illustrate homosexuality and gender multiplicity, they also illustrate sex transition, where females change to become males, for example, or males to females. Some can even change back and forth.
There are many species where the females are dominant over the males, and the males are afraid of the females. So the binaries that most of us learn in a class in high school, like males are aggressive, females are nurturing, that kind of thing, don't really hold up when we have more data from the natural world.
Humans, they project their values on the animal kingdom and say, look, gender is binary, it's natural. Or the only reason why in nature sex would occur is procreation. The biology of the last 20 years is telling us that it's not correct.
Biologists now know sexuality is fluid and that all of that is normal.
There's a lot of diversity in nature, and we need to know these stories so we can make up our own minds about what we think about the world.
Right, visit queeranimals.org for more information. So, if we're looking at nature, the works of the divine to tell us about our world, I think the jury's in. Our world is very gay. And that gender expression and sexuality comes in a rainbow variety, even within a species as well as across species. Honestly, reading through Evolution's Rainbow, the book, it is very much showing me that any possible combination of biological sex characteristics, mating, parenting, birth giving that you could possibly think of, nature's doing it somewhere. It's wild. It's really amazing. And so our theological word for this is pluralism. Pluralism means affirming the beauty and the truth of many different ways of being or believing or existing. And so I would like to apply pluralism now to a little bit of the more traditional divine feminine that we see. So I would say, hell yes, let us uplift the sacredness of the womb. Because wombs are great. Oh my gosh. Yes. Amazing. Knitting life into flesh. Wow. Love that. Thank you, wombs. If you have a womb and you like it, great. Love that for you. But let us also affirm the sacredness of the female hyena phallus. Did you know that female hyenas have a phallus that is up to 7 inches long, gets erect, they can urinate through it, penetrate with it, also give birth through it? It's a really incredible piece of engineering, you guys. Wow. Let us also affirm the sacredness of this scene from the compost pile. I'll tell you what's happening here. So this past spring, after I did the yearly tradition of leaving my Halloween pumpkin in front of my door for 6 months, I finally took my rotting pumpkin to the compost, dropped it on top, and it splooshed and revealed this. Within the rotting carcass of the mother pumpkin, dozens of her children feasting on her flesh, bursting into life. I affirm the sacredness of the holy dying pumpkin mother. And let us also lift up the zombie ant fungus, whose means of reproduction is to send spores that then infect an ant, grow inside its body, colonize its nervous system, causing the ant to climb up the tallest tree it can find, at which point then the fungus splurts out of its brain and releases the spores, which then disperse from that tall tree to reproduce and spread fungus life. Reproduction in all of its majesty. The world is marvelous. And now I would like to read you a tweet, which when I read this, I thought, oh, well, we can all just go home because here is my theology. So this goes, evangelicals being like, God made men to do this and be like this, and women to do that and be like that. That's just how it is. And it's just a picture of a white man and woman following traditional gender norms. Makes me so insane. Like, you boring fascist fellows. God made 2 million species of beetles. God made whales, ducks, humans, and 1,500 other species capable of same-sex behavior. God made fish and amphibians that change sexes. God made more than 30 different intersex variations in human beings. God, in her infinite curiosity, wake up. God wants women to have perfect no makeup looks and stay at home not talking back and upholding capitalism. God? That guy who made lizards shoot blood out of their eyes? That guy who made salmon do whatever the heck that is? Are you crazy? Yeah, that's my guy right there. God is way more interesting than we give her credit for. And so when I'm feeling playful, I like to say, don't get locked in about divinity, about the goddess. Because that's boring. Are you kidding? Why have only a prescriptive way of being when there is zombie ant fungus? But it's 2025. And so I also need to say, don't get locked in because it's dangerous. Because if we come back here to this screenshot, white ladies in white dresses, it's 2025, y'all. We can see it. You start out wanting to honor women and help women protect or heal from sexual trauma and protect women. And then you have purity tests and white supremacy, and suddenly it's 2025 and there's militia in the streets, and you are accidentally supporting a man who has been convicted of sexual assault. And here we are. The slow slide into fascism can start from many different places and any different religious tradition. Fascism can wear a divine feminine hat. And it does sometimes. And now we get here, defending women while actually stripping rights from trans people, talking about biological realities of sex, immutable biological classifications, barring transgender people from serving in the military, and most recently, issuing a memo that all federal-based insurance plans will no longer cover gender transition services starting in 2026, which is absolutely illegal and will be challenged in court. But this is just one of a flood of actions in the past 8 months designed to crowd out gender-affirming care and make it harder to access and harder for physicians to practice. And perhaps, probably, you've heard the phrase, gender-affirming care is life-saving care. If you haven't, commit that one to memory. It is true. And it is a good argument. But since we're here talking about theology, I do want to affirm today that gender-affirming care is sacred care. And there's a passage from the Tao Te Ching that I like. She unlearns what she was once taught and helps the people regain what they have lost. To help every being assume its natural way of being and not dare to force anything. That's from our own John Mabry's translation. He's a real cutie. We love him. And I do understand the desire to put up fences around the divine and to say, this is good and this is not, because I'm always going to put myself on the side of what is good. And it feels very comforting to think that I can put a box around the world and make sense of things. But we live in a boundless universe. Obviously, we have a boundless divine. Can't put a fence around the ocean. We cannot say that this or that is sacred, but this is not. And what I would like to leave you with today is the idea that divine feminine theology is so much bigger than any concept of a divine feminine. Yes, women, yes, feminism, yes, goddesses, yes, women's bodies, yes, all of that, and so much more. Because as a theology has some bones to it. A theology answers the big questions of life, like what's the nature of the divine, if there is a divine at all? And what happens when we die? And why do bad things happen? How do we make sense of our world? Divine feminine theology. Well, we can look at our book, the universe around us, and we can be good little empiricists, and we can look at data where we have data, and we can experiment for ourselves, and we can have pluralist views of spirituality where what is true and beautiful for me may not be exactly what's true and beautiful for you, but that's okay. It's an infinite universe and an infinite divine. And if you're curious to explore more of those questions, you can join me. Discovering the Divine Feminine. The next series starts on September 14th, Sundays at 4 Pacific, hosted on 170 Trees, my dear friend Reverend Leah's platform, 170trees.org. Yeah, and I think we do have time. So I'd like to offer a song here. It's called Never One Thing by May Erlewine. If you would, I would invite you, if you want to close your eyes, just listen to the lyrics, breathe, feel your body, and just let yourself imagine an expansiveness, an expansive you, an expansive divine, the expansive, pluralist, beautiful universe that we live in.
I'm the underbelly, I am the claw, never one thing, no, not one thing at all. I'm a street fighter, I'm a prayer for peace, I'm a holy roller, I'm a honeybee. I am the truth, I am a lie, I am the ground, I am the sky, I am the silence, I am the call, never one thing, no, not one thing at all. I'm the underbelly, I am the claw, never one thing, no, not one thing at all. I'm a street fighter, I'm a prayer for peace, I'm a holy roller, I'm a honeybee. I am hope, I am defeat, I am broken, I am complete. I am the grace, I am the fall, never one thing, no, not one thing at all. I'm the underbelly, I am the claw, never one thing, no, not one thing at all. I'm a street fighter, I'm a prayer for peace, I'm a holy roller, I'm a honeybee. I am the beggar, I am the queen, I am the end, I am the means, I am the heaven, I am the wall, never one thing, no, not one thing at all. I'm the underbelly, I am the claw, never one thing, no, not one thing at all. I'm a street fighter, I'm a prayer for peace, I'm a holy roller, I'm a honeybee. I am a victor, I am the loss, I am a prophet, I am the cost, I am the sad, I am the sting, never know, never one thing. I'm the underbelly, I am the claw, never one thing, no, not one thing at all. I'm a street fighter, I'm a prayer for peace, I'm a holy roller, I'm a honeybee. I am a mother, I am the child, I am the meek, I am the wild, I am the witch, I am the saint, I am alive, never one thing. I'm the underbelly, I am the claw, never one thing, no, not one thing at all. I'm a street fighter, I'm a prayer for peace, I'm a holy roller, I'm a honeybee. I am the lion, I am the swan, I am the bull, I am the fawn, I am a woman, I am the ring, I am my own, never one thing. I'm the underbelly, I am the claw, never one thing, no, not one thing at all. I'm a street fighter, I'm a
Never one thing. So here's my concluding thought, guys. I feel in my bones that this is a tradition to meet our present moment, that the richness and expansiveness is the antidote for the spiritual, logistical, societal illness and hurt that we're seeing right now. This is a tradition that moves us to embrace and not exclude, to affirm the sacredness and the goodness of each one of us, to invite each other into connection. And whatever it means to you, if it is true and beautiful, if it moves you to be a better version of yourself, if it serves the highest good, the collective good in some way, then to me, you're doing it. You can call it what you want, but to me, that's a divine feminine theology right there. So I invite you to explore that however it shows up for you. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'd love to hear any questions you have. Thank you.
Go ahead and just unmute if you'd like to offer a question, or put it in the chat and I'll be happy to ask Elaine.
I have a question for you, Elaine. It's Lucy. Hi. Hi,
Oh,
everyone.
hi, Lucy.
Am I all set or should I wait?
No, go ahead.
Oh, I'm good. Okay. I was actually at a christening yesterday. And it was very interesting because, you know, it was a family gathering and there is going to be a question at the end. You know, and my sister she sends out emails to her group every day about who to call about what politically, what's happening and who to call. And one of the younger people had said, you know, that she is building community close by where she is and trying to help neighborhoods and things. And my sister, who she is, said, that's not going to do anything. You know, and she started to say what needs to be done. And my whole sense was, wait a minute, it all needs to be done. And it all needs to be done from every angle. And there are so many different things that are happening. We're being inundated with fear and all kinds of crap. And my heart bleeds for all of my people and my friends who are suffering in different ways. And so the question, Elaine, is if you could talk a little bit about, I don't like the word fight, but I'm going to use it right now, how we could all fight in our own ways. What are some ways to make this more visible and more out there so it's being more noticed? And I'd just like to hear your thoughts if I could.
Thank you, dear Lucy. No pressure. Kind of a big question. But the thing that stood out to me, I think it was one of your sisters, but the idea of like investing in her local communities and networks. And I wanted to sneak it in today, but I'll have to leave it for another one. To me, I almost think that a divine feminine theology doesn't even need to have like the divine as feminine as its foundation. Because if we look at our universe, the universe loves a network. We see networks at every layer of our reality, from mycelial networks to our own brain to the dark cosmic web of dark matter. Our universe loves a network. I think that perhaps if I had to pick one symbol for divine feminine theology, I would pick a radically connective network. And so I think it may not appear in a linear, direct way that, yeah, investing in the people around you that does not obviously fight fascism, but it does. Because investing in our networks, I would say that it's an end in itself. I would say that it is its own form of magic, where the one little droplet that you put into your network somehow multiplies and comes back and feeds the network and yourself 5 times. I would say also that on the ideological or spiritual level, there is sort of a war of ideals that we live in an isolationist and individualist culture where so much of our community and network has been replaced by capitalist structures. And that doesn't work. That keeps us isolated and fractured and hooked on Netflix.
Yeah.
So
thank
I would
you,
say,
Elaine. Yeah.
yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, love.
Is there any part of it's Leah here. Is there any part of the divine feminine that you find challenges you?
Yeah. I was initially attracted to the divine feminine in the book Awakening Shakti that I mentioned. One of the first sentences, the first page that hooked me was, there are 1,000 ways that the goddess shows up for you. But oftentimes when she does, this signature touch of the goddess is bliss. I was like, oh, you know, I don't hear enough about bliss, yes, like that. That was very alive for me. And it would be so nice. I so wish that that could be all there is. It is challenging for me that even if I do my practices and I live like a good little divine feminine theologian and I invest in my community and I'm kind to cats and like, et cetera, this world is still effing hard. Living in a body is hard and you still get hurt and there are still surgical infections and there are still human systems that are really effed. And I think also the dichotomy between like, not only is the physical realm crunchy, let's call it that, we're also living in a world where the human systems that we've built are so artificially life draining and awful. And so on the one hand, it is a spiritual truth that I can say the universe is beautiful and it is good and she is abundant. But then I look out my window and it is a hellscape and I have pain and I'm irritated with my partner. And that's not true. He's an angel, but yeah, that's what I struggle with, Leah. I wish it could just be bliss and ecstatic dance and roses all the time. And it's not.
That's awesome. Thank you.
And she is all that too.
I've got a little bit of a question. I love the talk and thank you so much for your presence. My question is, I guess, kind of around the uterus. For some cisgender, transgender, even non-binary people that I know, the uterus is often an enemy, whether it's PCOS or just periods or just dealing with the system and how it regulates the uterus. And I'm wondering what is kind of, I guess, your thoughts or maybe a divine femme theology's idea of how does one reconcile that relationship, or if they don't want to reconcile it, how do they make peace with not wanting to be friends with the uterus?
Yeah, thank you so much, Ryan. That is a really thoughtful question. And I love that you you're giving me the opportunity to share this story right now, which is that in my own body, I have had sometimes chronically uncomfortable experiences with some of my feminine systems. And I was talking about this to my partner and having like some of the angst of like, am I blaspheming against my sacred female form by wanting to say, have a hysterectomy? And I think that would really improve my quality of life. And I think that that would, in fact, help me live out my sacred calling more fully. But like, And so my partner, bless him, said something along the lines of like, honey, like, after all this, like if Kali were experiencing all this that you've been going through, she would tear that thing out with her own claws. I was like, oh, yeah, you're not wrong. And so I think a truly expansive divine feminine way of relating with the womb, with female anatomy, with our bodies, like, well, it's pluralist, it's individual. We have trauma histories, we have physical pain, we have joy sometimes. Like, let each person, to misquote that quote from the Tao Te Ching, to let each being return to their natural way of being. Or I would say, also, it's 2025, we have modern medicine. We can use it. How about your highest way of being? Let each being return to their highest way of being, to live in their body with the most peace and joy, whatever that looks like.
Hi, I have a question. I'm Dana. I'm a current student. We met at the retreat. It's lovely to see you.
Hi, Dana.
Hi. I was just wondering, in a class I recently took, Jess Shine was sharing some of his research from his dissertation about kind of trans imagery in the early Christian church. Like the angels were portrayed as men without beards, which implied they were eunuchs. And then there was a lot of that, like the idea of somebody being trans or non-binary was holy. And then this church squashed all that and like destroyed the churches, and there's very little that remains. And I found that utterly wonderful and fascinating. And I just, not the destruction part. And I just wondered if you'd come across any of that kind of stuff.
Thank you. I'm also delighted to hear that. I admit, like, historical representations of trans people, it's not my strong suit. I am also delighted when I come across them. In a general way, I can affirm that Indigenous traditions across the world throughout history have uplifted the trans people among them as sacred. That's still true today.
Yeah,
Trans
I wonder if
lives are sacred.
I wonder if the language of the divine feminine could somehow be expanded somehow to, as you say, it can be inherent in the language or but I just loved your talk, so thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, between you and me, like, I secretly wonder if there might be a more expansive name that emerges in this tradition. And that's a contradiction for me, because I do get a lot out of naming the divine as feminine and calling her a her. Yeah, and that it just by its nature, the language kind of implies that this means that over here, and there's just so much more.
kind of think you knocked it out of the park, Elaine, here, but I'm curious if you could talk a little bit more about purity, meaning like you got to get it all right. You got to get, when you're talking about divine feminine, there's a right way, there's a wrong way, there's the whatever, and how we can move through that, beyond that, be amoeba and bring it all together. Just your thoughts about that.
Thank you, Carrie. Studying and practicing from a divine feminine standpoint has really given me an appreciation for just how thoroughly saturated our culture is in patriarchal, puritanical perfection, purity. We're very angsty because of it. I remember doing my divine feminine based practicum for ordination, and so much of my work with my supervisor in that process, every month I would show up kind of an anxious mess. Okay, so I've been this and this and this, but I don't know. And so my supervisor just worked with me every time to be like, well, let's take this little strand of patriarchy out of your thinking. And why are you anxious? You are following the call as it appears. So, obviously it's good enough. And I think a divine feminine perspective reminds us that we are each inherently good little creatures. And if we look to the natural world, that tree outside my window is not stressing out about if the flowers that it's making are good enough or if it's doing it the right way. Leah and I, in her community 170 Trees, have talked about the word unstuffy. And I like that. I think that's very important theologically. We don't have to do all that. You just show up who you are as you are, because you are a sacred being. You exist. You're here. That's great. You're already doing it.
I have a question. Also, I think that newly ordained guy that you cited was really good.
Yeah, he's a smart guy. Yeah.
What was I going to ask? Now I've lost my question. My question is whether you have any suggested ways for a cis and like not questioning, never questioned man, I mean beyond, I don't really question everything a little, to start incorporating finding some of my own internal divine feminine, because when you showed the Venn diagram slide, I was like, yeah, I don't want to just be in one of those circles. Like I like all of these traits. So yeah, I'm curious not to do the cishet white dude thing of centering myself. But if you have any suggestions for sort of where to start, yeah, on incorporating that into my own practice.
Yeah, thank you, Seth. That is genuinely a great question. If I'm a dude, how do I divine feminine? And I would say, because we live in the culture that we do, generally, the cishet dudes out there probably do have some movement toward the things in that feminine Venn diagram circle, because there is so much conditioning against, as a cishet dude, vulnerability, emotions, softness, connection, even like prettiness and beauty, right? Like, it's like, yeah, that belongs to you too. And, embracing a little bit of that Taoism and exploring who Seth is as a being and his most natural way of being, as a sacred way of being. And looking for and engaging in your networks as sacred practice, and looking to nature as sacred practice, which I know you do a lot, but so off the cuff, I think those would be my opening suggestions.
Thank you. Also, great talk. I want your slides.
Thank you, friends. I can't believe we are coming to the top of the hour. I have a little closing for us, but is in the way of just the business. I will send a follow-up email to everybody who registered with all of the links and the book references that Elaine has talked about today, and a recording of this this talk, so that you can share it with people or watch it again, or go back and say, what was that thing that person said or Elaine talked about, or that slide. So watch for that by the end of the week. And I'm going to put in the chat here if anybody has anything more they want to know about the Chaplaincy Institute, reach out to me. And then I have just a little closing for us. So as we settle in the sacred circle, the sacred talk, may we know that gender-affirming care is sacred care. May we remember that we can't put a fence around the ocean, that there are networks of sacred weaving held around us all, that it is never one thing, not one thing at all. May we all be unstuffy and remember that she is all that too. And I'll invite you to unmute and say thank you to Elaine, because what a beautiful talk this was.
Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Love
Elaine.
you.
It was awesome.
So stimulating. So
Thanks.
good.